Welcome to the Books of Titans podcast, hosted by Eric Rostad. Join him on his 15-year journey through the immortal books. He'll share what he's learning, explore profound ideas across time and cultures, and share the one thing he always hopes to remember from each immortal book.
Today I'm going to cover the Bible, at least part of it. I start off each year and I read straight through a different version translation of the Bible, and I do that during January and February. So I'm in the midst of that period right now, and I'm always kind of wondering, what should I do on the podcast during this time? Because usually I'm reading books and then I can cover the book, usually a different book every Friday. But with the Bible, it's 2 months on the same book, so what should I talk about during that time? And so what I decided to do this year is just actually talk about the Bible, but as I'm reading it. So just kind of share what I read the week before, some of the things that stood out, and just kind of do that on a weekly basis here during the first couple of months of this year. So this year I decided to read the Intertextual Tanakh. This was a Bible that was sent to me by Russ Roberts of Econ Talk fame, and I work with him. I do his website development for russroberts.info, but then we talk books and he follows this reading project. And so he sees that I read the Bible every year. And so he just sent me the copy of the Intertextual Tanakh, and it's volume 1. And so what it contains is the Torah, which is the 5 books of Moses, and that is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and then it contains the early prophets. And so I'm using this version. Volume 2 has not yet come out, and so it'll just contain the books I just mentioned. And then I'm going to proceed, after I finish that, using the Bibliotheca version of the Bible. And it is split in a similar way, where Volume 1 is those same things, the Torah and the early prophets. And then it goes on to the latter prophets, the writings, which would be things like Psalms, Song of Solomon's, Ecclesiastes, things like that. And then it has the Apocrypha and then the New Testament. And I used that version in 2023, but I'll use that for the final 4 books of the Bible. And then for that first book, though, I'm using this international Tanakh. And I'm loving it so far. It has a very extensive commentary. So it's almost the exact opposite of the Bibliotheca version that I'll be reading. The Bibliotheca version is just, it looks like a novel. Like they don't even have verses or chapters notated. It's just it's just text on the page, single column, but it feels like a novel, and they've got it split into multiple books just so you're not carrying around this huge Bible. However, the Intertextual Tanakh is just this huge volume. It's heavy, ton of commentary, but it's been awesome so far. So right now where I'm at, I started in Genesis. So starting on January 1st, I have read Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and I'm in the midst of Numbers. So I still have a little bit left to go in Numbers, and then Deuteronomy after that to finish out the Torah. I am way behind. And so I am a nerd and I track all these things, but mostly because I really want to try to get through it in 2 months. So I know I put down the number of pages that are in these 5 different books of the Bible that I'm reading, and it's 2,823 pages total that I'm trying to get through between January 1st and February 28th. And I've only read 188 of those pages so far. And so just with the 2,823 pages, I need to be reading 48 pages a day to get through all of the whole Bible within that 2-month period. Right now, I'm averaging 13 pages per day. So I'm way behind. In order to finish, I need to start reading 60 pages a day. I think it's doable. The first part of the year is always hard for me work-wise, just kind of getting into the flow of things and having the time to set aside to read. So that's part of it. The other, and this is probably more a part of why I'm so far behind, is in this Intertextual Tanakh, the notes and commentary are so intriguing, and I find myself stopping all the time to look at if there's something that I'm having trouble understanding, or I just want to see the note about it, I end up reading this whole note about the verse I just read. So that's the main reason it's taking me so long, but it is so delightful, and I'm learning so much that I can't help myself. And so I just keep referring to the commentary. And one really cool thing about the commentary, just in terms of this reading project as a whole, is it's been so amazing to read works that precede the Bible. So things like the Epic of Gilgamesh or the Babylonian creation story, but then also works from Egypt. And as I'm reading through this intertextual Tanakh that I've started with, there are a ton of notes that reference those works, but they reference the biblical verse, and then this it could be in response to this work or the creation story, the Babylonian creation story, and so I love that part of it because I've been struck by all of that as I've been reading these works that precede parts of the Bible, and so that's just been neat. These notes have really been helpful and about things that I'm very interested in. And so that's where I'm at right now. I'm kind of in the middle of numbers. So what I wanted to do in this episode is just share a few things. And so for the next 2 months, I'll do that. I'll just kind of take a few minutes and share some of the things that stuck out to me the week before as I was reading through the Bible. So here are a few things. I was struck in Leviticus with this comment about justice, and it goes like this. This is Leviticus 19:19. Do not favor the destitute and do not honor the great. End quote. I mean, you really get the sense of the justice is blind in that sense, where you're not, even if someone is a leg down, you don't favor the destitute if you're talking about justice, but you also don't honor the great. Justice is blind in that sense of it. Next thing is the blessing, and we're all familiar with the blessing. Even if you have never been to a church, you probably heard this in a movie. But the blessing goes like this. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. That's how we normally hear it. This is the translation in this intertextual Tanakh. It goes, Yahweh will bless you and protect you. Yahweh will shine his face to you and favor you. Yahweh will lift up his face to you and give you peace. Right before that, it says, Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, like so you will bless the Israelites, say to them. And so it's Aaron who is speaking this over the people. And this may be a very obvious comment about what I'm about to say, but it really struck me this time reading it in that the blessing comes from God. Again, very obvious, but Aaron has to say it, but it's not like Aaron's words. And this commentary on it really helped me understand that in a deeper way. So it's just a really short statement here. The blessing comes from God. The priests are merely the officiants who recite the words on God's behalf. God blesses the priests bless Israel, end quote. So I just loved that aspect. It's not the priests who are blessing the people. They are, but the blessing comes from God. Again, that may be the most obvious thing to you, but for some reason it just really struck me this year that they're almost just the mouthpiece and giving the blessing directly from God. I think when I usually hear it, the Lord bless you and keep you, it sounds like it's coming from the person saying it, of like, oh, the Lord bless you and keep you. Whereas this one where Yahweh will bless you and protect you, Yahweh will shine his face upon you and favor you. It's a more forceful way of saying it. And it gives that impression more that, okay, this blessing is coming directly from God. This is God who blesses you, not a person who blesses you. That was interesting to me. The next thing was I talk about Caleb, and Caleb and Joshua become kind of key members under Moses. And in Numbers chapter 14 it says this: "In my servant Caleb, consequent to there being with him a different spirit, and he followed me fully, I will bring him to the land he came to, and his seed will possess it." End quote. I just was fascinated by that different spirit, and I'm kind of noticing that a little more on this particular reading of the Bible, but just how the spiritual realm, but the spirit within a person, how that can set them apart. So yeah, that was interesting about Caleb. The next thing was, and this really goes in contrast to that blessing that I just read, and how the blessing is from God. When Moses strikes the rock and then to get water, and then he's barred from entering the promised land because of that. It says this: because you did not believe in me to make me holy before the eyes of the Israelites, therefore you will not bring the assembly to the land that I have given them. In the commentary, it says this: instead of speaking to the rock, he performs a self-aggrandizing theatrical magic trick, replete with a sarcastic taunt to make his own act seem more remarkable, as he did once for God's honor by theatrically asking the earth to swallow the rebels, end quote. But the idea here is that God was not invoked, and that was the problem. It was Moses kind of trying to show in out of anger, but God was not invoked, whereas with that blessing, it's God is being invoked, and the blessing is from God to the people. I thought that was a neat connection there. So those are some of the things that stuck out so far this reading, and it's really interesting. I just had somebody ask on over email, and they said, "Hey, I've followed you a little bit, and I'm reading through the Bible right now." As a result of seeing that you do it each year, and but I'm stuck in these first few books of the Bible. I don't know what to do with them, and so I gave him a few suggestions. One would be to find a Bible with some commentary, just to kind of help your way through it, and then the second was to maybe take a different approach on the order of reading the Bible, and to that I linked to a episode I did in 2020 where I interviewed Dr. Jason Staples, and he gave really good advice for like a first time reading straight through the Bible, like how should you do it? But then the very last thing I said in that email is, every time I read the Bible, these parts of it become more and more interesting. The parts that I would always moan about when I was a kid, like Leviticus, just thinking it was so boring. And each time I read it now, it just becomes more and more fascinating. And especially the more that I read the Bible as a whole, you see how it all connects. And so these things become really important. Whereas before I didn't know what to make of them, but it's almost like just keep going and keep reading it. And maybe if you have to skip around and then come back to stuff, but the more you kind of view it as a whole, the more beautiful it becomes. And so it's fun going through the Bible each year. I've said before that each time I read through the Bible straight through like this, there are some themes that just start to pop up, and it's just kind of a natural thing. I don't really plan it. Sometimes it's something I've been thinking about before I enter into reading the Bible, but other times it's just this. It almost starts as like a question of, oh, I thought it was one way, and what I just read said something different than how I had always thought about it. So why is that? Why did I think about it differently? And I want to kind of get to the bottom of this and see if it's spoken about in other parts of the Bible. And so I just start kind of tracking a certain idea through the Bible. And the example I always give is when I first read it in 2020, the curse stood out to me, and the curse shows up in the 3rd chapter of the Bible, and then the curse is mentioned throughout the Bible in different aspects and scenarios and all sorts of things. It's actually like in the version of the Bible I read that year, it was the very last word of the Old Testament was curse, and then the curse is resolved on the very last page of the Bible in the book of Revelation. So it's just an incredible thing to track that first year. And so this year I kind of went going in. I had started thinking about angels a lot, and part of it was our pastor had been talking about them, and something he said stood out in that they don't have wings. And I always, every piece of art you see out there about a angel, the angel has wings. Christmas movies talk about angels with wings, and everything's angels with wings. And to find out angels didn't have wings, I was like, what? Come on. And so I'm kind of tracking that, but then I started tracking cherubs as well. And cherubs show up when Adam and Eve are kicked out of the garden. Cherubs guard Eden, so you can't get back into Eden. And so what are these cherubs? And the commentary in this book is so interesting because it's talking about cherubs being something that people in Mesopotamia would have understood, just in terms of what they are. But then cherubs show up on the Ark of the Covenant. They're those two winged creatures who are on the top of the Ark of the Covenant. And so cherubs have wings, but angels don't. And so far in this particular translation, the word angel, as far as I can remember, has not been used, but instead they say messenger, which is what an angel is. And so yeah, just something that has been interesting to track this time around. And so cherubs, now I've got cherubs at the top of my mind. I'm making a note every time I come across them. And if there's commentary on this one, I'll see what the commentary is about the cherubs. And I just look forward to seeing where and how and when and all that cherubs show up for the rest of the Bible. And so I'm really going to be tracking that the rest of the time, cherubs and angels, and just kind of see what I can learn as I go through the Bible this year. If you've never read through the Bible, I will try to include some show notes. I've done different episodes and different articles just on some tools to use. Something that's very helpful, especially in the books that I'm going through now, is a simple map. There are apps that you can actually go chapter by chapter of the Bible. So if you're in Numbers chapter 6 or something, and they're going from one place to another, you can see exactly where that is in modern times, over a modern map, but then also see what that city would have been like back in those days. And so stuff like that's really helpful. Just having a list of the 12 tribes of Israel is very helpful. Once you get to the list of the kings, it's very helpful to have a list of the kings of Israel and Judah and just kind of where they overlap and that kind of thing. If they were a good or bad king in Judah, all the kings of Israel were bad, but there's kind of a mixed bag in Judah. So just kind of having those type of lists at your fingertips, those things are all very helpful if you're going through the Bible for the first time. I will try to link to that specific part where Dr. Jason Staples talked about a proposed way to read through the Bible. And if I remember correctly, it's like you start with Genesis and then read to a certain point in Exodus where it's very narrative driven. And then once you get into the laws and that, you just stop, kind of move forward, read, and he gives ideas on how to kind of move forward from there. And then at the end, you come back to some of these earlier books, Leviticus and Numbers, and it'll make a little more sense if you've gone through the rest of the Bible. As for reasons why to do it, I mean, I do it. I'm a Christian, and so I think it's important to read the Bible every year, and so I love starting the year off with it. Just if you're a lover of literature, you need to have this. You need to know this work. If you love going to museums, you need to know this work. Like almost all the artwork you're going to see is based on stories from the Bible, and a lot of it's from the Apocrypha. And I'd never read the Apocrypha until a few years ago, and just even seeing all the stories and then seeing the artwork depicted, and I never really knew those stories until I read the Apocrypha. But you see those in museums all over the place. And then, like I always like to say, for so much of literature, they're referencing, and if it's English, they're often referencing the King James Version of the Bible. And so just having read that one is really nice. The language is poetic, and but it when you come across these references in literature, it's not going to say, oh, by the way, I'm quoting this right now in this story. They're just going to say it. There probably won't even be quotes around it. But the more you have this inside of you, the more you know it, it enhances the reading of so much else, whether it's Cormac McCarthy, Herman Melville, and Moby Dick. I mean, there's so many works are directly referencing the scriptures in the Bible. And so the more you know about that, it just is going to enhance your reading life, obviously your spiritual life. And so it's been encouraging for me. I get notes from people and even friends who have taken up the challenge of reading straight through the Bible just after seeing me do it for this project. Again, it's just something I love, but it's really amazing to see other people do it as well. So if you're kind of on the fence about it, take a look at the show notes for this episode, and there might be some helpful ideas on ways that you could have this be the first year that you do that yourself. Well, thank you for listening. Like I said, I will take the next 2 months and just kind of share what I'm learning each week. I'll try to keep the episodes shorter than usual episodes, and just give some things, some ideas of what's going through my head as I'm reading through the scripture this year. It's always a big surprise to me as well, as certain things pop out in different years. So I can't wait to see what happens for the rest of the time here, and I hope you enjoy following along on that journey with me. So I'll be back next week with the next portion. So hopefully I finish the Torah in the early prophets by that time. Just in terms of time frame, I really need to, so I can move on with the latter prophets, the writings, the Apocrypha, and then the New Testament. Last year I skipped the Apocrypha. This year I really want to read it. I miss reading it, so I'm hoping to get to that this year. So thank you for listening. I'll be back next week, and until then, keep listening, keep reading, and keep learning. I'm out.